Hey loves, it's Britt, and in this video, I want to talk about natal Venus in the ninth house. So, I always find the ninth house to be such a stark contrast to the eighth house, which is, this deep and intense emotional place. And then the ninth house is kind of like the exhale, like this lighter energy. And not to say that people with Venus in the ninth house are just always going to be lighthearted all the time. They could have other aspects going on with Venus that are going to show that there's hardship still in love and there's difficulties, right? But this placement is a lot lighter. There is a very hopeful energy to their personality. The ninth house is kind of a lucky place, right? Naturally ruled by Jupiter, it represents a lighter energy, an energy that it's very noble. People with Venus in the ninth house have a love for higher learning sometimes, so they could be like quite scholarly people. They also, could love traveling, and there is a likelihood or a tendency to meet lovers through like university or through some form of like higher learning or through traveling. So, like the classic textbook interpretation of this placement is like you will meet someone in another country and fall in love with them and potentially move there, or they'll move to you, or there's an emphasis on these kind of relationships and long distance journeys. Now, whether that actually happens or not, I mean, it's probably going to be shown by more things than just this, but there is definitely a love of travel. And if it's not actual physical travel, which it likely is, it's going to be travel in the mind. So, these are the people that, have a bookshelf like this, right? That's not even the only bookshelf. I don't have Venus in the ninth, but I have Jupiter in the ninth. Um, they love to learn, and they love to expand their mind, and they also love to like debate and like communicate with people that are coming from a different background. So they actually like to entertain new ideas that are different from their own. They like to talk to people that have different religious beliefs or have, different like they're a very curious Venus placement when we have Venus in the ninth. Now, depending on the sign of Venus, there can be a bit of like intellectual or moral superiority come through, where it's like they want to debate with you, but like they are quite sure that they're right and they know. And it's often true that maybe they do know more than the average person. This is an intellectual Venus placement, right? Now, they also have a very strong intuition. So it's not just that they're always these like book nerds either. They have a very strong intuition. They have like a very strong like intuition about morals, about what's right, and they have like very strong beliefs that they stick to that are very much intuitively led. So, yeah, we could see these people actually end up being some sort of teacher because they have really strong beliefs. They have a very open, like, intuitive channel, and they take pleasure in that. It's enjoyable for them to teach. It's enjoyable for them to, even in some cases, write or speak or um, be outgoing. This is a more, like I said, it's such a contrast to the eighth house. Like people with Venus in the ninth, they, don't mind speaking as much, like public speaking or like being a teacher or being, it's like a more extroverted energy when we have Venus in the ninth. Like they, yeah, they like to move around a lot. They don't mind talking to people in their journeys, right? They actually can enjoy that. They enjoy the different cultures. They enjoy like, going to somewhere that is completely different from where they grew up and what they've known, and like really learning about the culture, right? Like whereas some placements are just like concerned about what's under their nose, right? Like they're just like, like Taurus energy is like, I don't care about what other people are doing. Venus in the ninth house is genuinely curious about how other people live, especially if it's very different from them. And so like this type of person, like you could see them being kind of like a studier of, yeah, like different cultures, or even like, I mean, this is classic like textbook, but like a travel agent or something, or flight attendant or something like that. Like that kind of career is like classic textbook Venus in the ninth house. Now, where they can get hurt is, we talked about these like strong morals and principles that they have and that they live by. So in their love life, they feel, now this might not always be true, but they do feel that they are acting from a very high place of integrity. And often they are. Like, this would be rare cases where they wouldn't be. Um, so when other people do not act right, when other people do sneaky or like, lying or cheating, or that they can get very hurt and actually like blindsided. So like this is a contrast to the Venus in the eighth house, who is like expecting betrayal, expecting people to be shady, right? People with Venus in the ninth house can actually end up being far more hurt when you betray them, because they are so high minded, they have such integrity, they would never expect you to not have that same integrity. So, in a way, it's actually like a bit more naive of a placement, because of like they almost like, Venus is kind of where we're lazy too, right? So they feel that they have such high integrity and morals that like they don't think outside of that to see that these people, more, this is more so in love relationships, not like friendships or other types of relationships, which there's usually an abundance of like all types of relationships with this placement. But in love relationships is where they expect the best and can sometimes be let down. Now, not that this is even a perpetual theme unless we have like a Venus Neptune square happening or something, but when it does happen, it can be just like such a blindsided thing that they just never expected. And like, yeah, they can recover quickly. They can recover easily. They can move on quickly with this placement because there's always something better around the corner, right? This is a little bit of a Venus and Sagittarius energy, right? But that initial hurt and the shock that you would behave that way, that you would act so out of line, like they can really, in that case, be very, like morally superior. And they will tell that story for ages. Like, can you believe this person I was in love with acted like this? Like, it's a big deal when you act out of line with these people in a love situation. Now, on like, one side of it, they could be a bit hard to reach. Like with that energy of the ninth house, it is like they do believe there's always something better around the corner. So like to actually get their heart, to actually gain their affections, you have to be kind of an exciting person. You have to be someone different. You have to be someone new. You have to be someone from a far off land. And that might just be mentally, or it could be physically. So, they could get a bit of a reputation of being kind of like the Bachelor with this energy. Now, not that that's necessarily what they want, or that that's going to be the case all the time, but you could see these people kind of, going from one relationship to the next, and especially if Venus is in a fire sign or something, never quite being satisfied with a love relationship, because there's always the promise of something better, something lighter, something that's not going to bog them down. If you feel like an energy that's heavy, that's dragging them down, that's keeping them stuck, that's saying, I want you to stay home, or I don't want you to take that course, I don't want you to expand your mind, they will dump you so fast. With Venus in the ninth house, they need to be free to roam. And if you're that person who can give them that freedom and space to travel, or to, yeah, like expand their mind, or learn about something new, or, be um yeah, a different person one day than they were the day before. Like they need the freedom for all of that, right? And if you're that person, then you're a good match for them. But they do not want to feel tied down. They do not want to feel restricted. But at the same time, they can give you all the freedom that you could ever need. Maybe sometimes too much. They will give you that same freedom. This is not a jealous position of Venus. They because they don't see it like that. They don't, the way that Venus in the ninth house sees love is not like ownership, right? Like love is something exciting. Love is something fun. Love is something where we're growing and we're learning and we're giving each other lots of space. And, like I said, such a contrast to Venus in the eighth house. Like you'll always notice the difference between um, the shift from eighth to ninth house, or the shift from like Scorpio to Sagittarius, or Pisces to Aries. Like when we're going from water to fire, we see some very big differences in personality, and this one is pretty noticeable. Now you could still have like Venus and Scorpio in the ninth, right? That's a bit of a contradiction. You can still see some jealousy or possessiveness if you have that, but there will also like simultaneously be a love of travel or a love of learning, and maybe even more intensely with Venus and Scorpio, right? So you kind of have to take both the sign and the house placement to like really get a read on someone, but generally speaking, this is a pretty fun one, and this is a more lighthearted place to have Venus. These people are a hoot. They, yeah, they can be really funny too because of the way that they are socially. Like Venus is also how you are socially. It's how you relate to others, not just in a romantic relationship, but people with Venus in the ninth house are very perceptive. They're gonna notice things. They're gonna yeah, be able to see the world in a really unique way, which allows them to be a bit of a comedian at times, or yeah, a really entertaining person socially, right? And there is, like I said, a likelihood of more extroversion with this placement. So those kind of roles too, like the comedian, the teacher and the student, but especially the teacher, you could see with Venus here. And I did mention, yeah, there's an emphasis on like the classic textbook stuff, right? Universities, learning, um, also, yeah, traveling. So that's really a big part of like where they get a lot of pleasure, is like hopping on that plane and like experiencing that other culture. Like to them, that is the most orgasmic thing that you could ever do. So it's an interesting placement for sure. These are the people like that have a travel blog, or like um, yeah, it's very rare to see them be like reclusive when you have this placement. And like I said, it's also very rare to see them without integrity. There's usually a high integrity. Um, these are some really good people. These are some solid people. They might be a little bit on the scattered side as far as love goes, but like I said, when they found that true love that feels exciting, that lets them be free, there is nothing they won't do for you. And they really are seeking that. They have high ideals in love. Yeah, what else do I want to say about that? Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Um, there's energy with this placement. There's high energy. There's kind of like a free spirited high energy with this placement. So, yeah, I'd love to know your experience of this placement. If you have it, if you're with someone that has it, let me know what it's been like for you. I'd love to know. I'd love to hear about it. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Love you guys, and we'll talk soon. Okay, bye.